Hey everybody, welcome back. Abigail Barber actually listened.
Welcome back to this podcast. Woo!
You know, I should be used to it at this point. Whatever. Hey everybody, welcome back to Distracted.
They were waiting for that, weren't they?
They were waiting for it. Welcome back to Distracted Quartet of Chaos. As you can tell, chaos is the best description at the moment.
The operative word.
Yeah. So this is a special episode. This is our very first
In spirit
episode.
of the holidays, we are surrounded by family and friends.
Yes. Thank you, Adam.
This is going to be a fun episode.
This is going to be a fun episode, and here's why. This is our first ever holiday episode. This is our beginnings of our Distracted Holidays of Chaos mini-series that we'll have going on throughout everything else. Although, keeping with tradition in our normal podcast episodes, here's my prerequisite apology. I have 2 cats and a dog who are all very hyperactive and annoying, and the dog is very hyper right now. And I also have a wife, and our sister Abby are over there in the kitchen.
Hi.
Being very loud, making Christmas cookies and having a grand old time. So they're trying to keep quiet for us to do this holiday episode. But if you hear laughter, it's them. So we are starting a holiday-themed series. Technically, this is the second one, but our first episode was supposed to be at Halloween, and the audio files got corrupted, so we can't use it.
It was unusable!
Exactly. So we are just restarting at Christmas. So if y'all just someday want to hear that episode, I can potentially fix the files, but it would take a lot of work. So we're just gonna not do that. Anyways, the way that these Holidays of Chaos episodes are gonna work is it's just gonna be me and one other person, maybe 2 if it's a special holiday. But it's just gonna be me and one other person to make them quick, fun, holiday themed, so you have a nice themed episode. And this first episode is Christmas, obviously. You see the date that the episode was published. Thank you, Radar.
He's
knows it's
excited that
Christmas.
it's Christmas.
He knows it's Christmas. So if you can't tell, Adam is the one that's with us today. It's just me and Adam, and we are
Hello.
going to be covering...
Abby's adding him on in here.
Oh my gosh!
So this is a hot mess.
Oh, this
That's
is gonna
okay,
be-
'cause you
I
know what?
do not envy you the editing process you have.
Well, the podcast is supposed to be a window into our lives for our listeners, and what better window than the chaos in my house at Christmas time, so... Oh, goodness. But as you have read on the episode title, we are covering Mickey's Christmas Carol, because that's a big classic, a big one from our childhood, and we are excited to dive into it.
And I get to be the humbug man.
Yes, you do. That's a perfect segue, Adam. So, keeping in tradition with our usual episodes, I'm going to typecast ourselves, but it's much easier this time because it's just 2 of us. If you've been listening along with our normal series, you'll know that there's a large running joke that I am Donald Duck. And in keeping with that tradition, I am Donald Duck. I am Donald Duck who plays Nephew Fred. In every sense of the character, I am Donald Duck. His temper, his unluckiness, just his personality, it's me. So we're just going to keep going. Oh, I'm Aaron. I'm the 3rd of the 4 of us siblings that make up the Quartet of Chaos, and I'm your hopefully humble host. I should probably throw that in there.
I do think that him as what was the character's name?
Fred, Nephew Fred.
I do think him as Fred also does fit because you are very a very festive person when it comes to the holidays.
Donald is a very cheery character. He just gets set off really easily, which again fits me pretty well. So. And then our guest for today, Adam, he's the 2nd of the 4 of us. He is none other than Ebenezer Scrooge, played by Scrooge McDuck, because Adam is a humbug.
I'm the wet blanket. I'm the wet blanket.
He doesn't hate Christmas. Let's clarify that. He loves Christmas.
I
He's
just work
the
on
wet
Christmas
blanket.
a lot.
He's the pessimist of the group, so... So yeah, Adam is Scrooge McDuck, who plays Ebenezer Scrooge.
Yeah, I fully expect that. I do have a question that may be in your notes, but I'm
Okay.
very curious. Was this the first appearance of Scrooge, or had he already appeared in DuckTales and such?
No, this was before DuckTales, but Scrooge had been around for decades at this point. Scrooge,
Okay.
during a lot of the original Mickey Mouse shorts and cartoons, this is when a lot of those characters came out. You
And
had,
it wasn't going to surprise me if, like,
if he was
like
made
in-
for this.
yeah, if he was made for this, and like Mr. Nezer in VeggieTales, that was a parody of a character. That's just how their name stuck. And so I didn't know if it was going to be like, oh, he's Scrooge because he's Ebenezer Scrooge. But then they're like, all right, he's Scrooge, but we're going to change, he's Scrooge McDuck. There we go.
No, I believe that he'd been around for quite a while.
Okay.
But I do have some notes about Scrooge, not much. But speaking of notes, we'll go ahead and jump into just a little bit of fun facts and stats and stuff on the movie. I don't have much because it's considered a short, but we'll go ahead and talk about it. So, Mickey's Christmas Carol was first released on December 16th, 1983, alongside the reissue of The Rescuers. So
Interesting.
it played before The Rescuers, yes. So that's odd and interesting. But I mean, it's only 26 minutes is the runtime, so
Yeah.
it fits as a short before a movie. Obviously, it's based on the book A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. It's a classic. I think that goes without saying. The budget for the movie for the short, was estimated about $3 million. I don't have any number on how much it's made because it's a short. It's never been released on its own.
Right.
So I would have had to dive into the numbers of how much that specific reissue of The Rescuers made, and
At that
diving
point,
into
it's not worth it.
home releases and such, because we know it from, there was a straight to home release video of a House of Mouse special called Snowed In at the House of Mouse. It was a Christmas House of Mouse, and this was the last short on there.
I want to say we watched it beforehand too. I don't remember how, but I want to say I remember already being very familiar with it before the House of Mouse special.
And we may have, but that's where I most remember it from, which kind of jumping into memories there a little bit. But it was one of the shorts on that House of Mouse special. So there's no easy way to find a gross estimate of what this has made.
Right.
But it was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Animated Short Film that year.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's kind of fun. And this, before we get into cast and crew, this is the last time that Clarence Nash, the original voice of Donald Duck, got to voice Donald Duck.
Really?
He died the next year.
Oh.
And he was the last original voice actor that was alive for the Disney characters. So he's the only original voice actor that was in this short.
And this was the final hurrah of the original voice cast of or of any member of the original voice cast of the Fab Five.
Yes.
That is fascinating.
Well, of any of the original Disney characters, because the original voice actors for characters like Pete and Scrooge had died previous years as well. So just of any of the characters in here, he was the only original voice actor left. And then he died the following year, or 2 years after, maybe. But we can go ahead and jump into cast and crew. So our director and our producer, he both directed and produced it. His name was, sorry, I can't read my handwriting, Burry Mattinson. He directed and produced it. And music is by Erwin Kostal. 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 I don't know how to pronounce that. And that's all of our crew, really. I mean, there was some people that did backgrounds, and there was a shorter list of animators, but that's typically the only crew we go through is directors, producers, and music. So we can go ahead and jump into casting. So, Scrooge McDuck, who played the character of Ebenezer Scrooge, was voiced by Alan Young, who was the second person to ever voice Scrooge McDuck, I believe.
Okay.
But he was the voice of Scrooge throughout the entirety of DuckTales.
I thought so, because I was about to say, he sounded very familiar from the bits of the OG DuckTales that I had heard.
Yes, he was the voice of Scrooge for like decades. But this was his first time. This was Alan Young's first time to voice Scrooge. Was starting with the Christmas Carol, and then from then on out, he was the voice of Scrooge McDuck up until he died in 2016.
Oh, okay.
Which is why in the reboot the next year they had David Tennant do Scrooge's voice. Mickey Mouse, who played the part of Bob Cratchit, was voiced by Wayne Allwine, who was the third person to ever voice Mickey Mouse.
I think he did it a while too for some of the shorts.
He actually is one of the longest running voice actors for Mickey Mouse to date.
Oh, really?
He was the voice of Mickey for over 30 years.
Oh, wow.
Because Walt obviously was the original voice of Mickey
Right.
Mouse, but he died 20 years before this in the 60s. So, so there's Mickey, and then Goofy Goof playing Marley was voiced by Hal Smith. Pinto Colvig had also died in the 60s, the original voice actor for Goofy. Hal Smith was best known for playing Owl in the Winnie the Pooh, the first 4 Winnie the Pooh shorts, like the first 4 Winnie the Pooh things. He was also Elmer Fudd in a lot of Looney Tunes stuff. He was Gyro Gearloose and Flintheart Glomgold in the original DuckTales. This man was everything.
Yeah.
He did all sorts of voice acting.
That was one of the things I noticed is I was like, oh, I didn't know if it was just they didn't have the right voice actor, but I'm like, this is definitely before they nailed the voice for Goofy or had Jim Cummings do it, I guess. Which, I mean, makes sense.
Is it Jim Cummings that took over for Goofy?
I think so.
I haven't really looked into it, but it was whoever that does it now was Hal Smith. He did Goofy for a little bit, but he also voiced the taller of the 2 money collectors that came to Scrooge asking for money for the poor, which that character is played by Ratty, who is from The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad.
I thought that was who that was. I'm like, I know them, and it wasn't familiar enough that I'm like, I immediately know who it was, but I thought it was that.
And his counterpart, the other collector, is Moley, also from The Adventures of Mr. Ichabod, or Mr. Toad. Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. That one, yeah. And Moley / collector was voiced by a man named Will Ryan, who also voiced Pete / the Ghost of Christmas Future and Willie the Giant from Fun and Fancy Free / the Ghost of Christmas Present. So all 3 of those characters were voiced by Will Ryan, who is most famously known for voicing Petrie in the Land Before Time movies.
Really?
So he does all these low voice characters, but is most well known for the high pitched squeaky Petrie.
Fascinating.
Very fascinating. Very fascinating. Jiminy Cricket, who plays the Ghost of Christmas Past, is voiced by Eddie Carroll, who is the 3rd person credited to voice Jiminy Cricket.
Okay.
And Eddie Carroll is the man that provides the voice for all of Jiminy's lines in all of the Kingdom Hearts games.
I assumed he was the current one because it sounded very similar to how he sounded in like the sing-alongs we used to watch.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, he's still alive. He's still the current one. And then Daisy Duck, who played Ebenezer Scrooge's ex, Isabel,
That was a weird thing that I'll get onto later, but yeah.
Yeah. She was voiced by a lady named Patricia Paris, who did a lot of voiceovers and characters in minor movies, and she did a lot of narrations for audiobooks.
Okay.
Like back when audiobooks were on vinyl, on records, where you had like a book on a record. She did voices for a lot of those. She did some Star Wars audiobooks, actually, and she was Princess Leia. She was Princess Leia in some Star Wars books.
Cool.
And then I have written down Tiny Tim was played by, and I don't know which one. It just said Morty and Ferdy Fieldmouse were minor mouse characters in some of Mickey Mouse shorts. I don't know which one was supposed to be Tiny Tim, but it was one of the 2. The other one was the other Cratchit son. But Tiny Tim was voiced by a kid named Dick Billingsley, and I couldn't find anything on him.
Yeah, child actor. I assume that was probably that. There's a good chance that was the only thing he ever did.
I figured as much. And then I also have a list of all of the characters that are seen or referenced in the movie. That it shouldn't take super long.
Okay.
So first of all, you have Minnie Mouse, who was Mrs. Cratchit,
Right.
and Millie and Melody Mouse, which canonically are Minnie Mouse's nieces
Okay.
throughout Mickey's shorts and the comics and all that. And they were the two Cratchit daughters, obviously. You see, at the very beginning, you see the big bad wolf on the side collecting for charity. It looked like a Samaritan's Purse type.
I actually did catch that, and in front of him
Were
are the three little pigs.
Yeah, caroling. And then, whenever Scrooge goes to the past and he sees Fezziwig is Mr. Toad from Ichabod and Mr. Toad.
With a powdered wig.
My wife just corrected me. It was Salvation's Army, not Samaritan's Purse. Two different Christmas charities. Salvation's Army is the one with the bells in front of Walmart.
Yeah.
Thank you, darling.
I wasn't going to say anything, but yeah.
And I have a list of the following characters that are seen at Fezziwig's Christmas party. So obviously you have Fezziwig, who's Mr. Toad. You see Lady Cluck from Robin Hood.
I think I remember seeing her.
Angus McBadger from The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. Uncle Waldo from Aristocats.
I did not catch him.
Horace Horsecollar and Clarabelle Cow, who were a part of the Mickey Mouse character franchise. They were dancing together. You see Chip and Dale. And then you see...
Very obviously.
Yeah. And then obviously you see Huey, Dewey, and Louie decorating a tree in Fezziwig's. So all of them are there at that party. And then at the end of the movie, you see running across the street Skippy Bunny and Toby Turtle.
I did catch them from Robin Hood. I did catch them.
And then right after that from Robin Hood, standing in the street are Mother Rabbit and Grandma Owl, who are both from Robin Hood
I think I also caught them. I'm not 100% sure, but I definitely remember seeing quite a few of these.
And lastly, at the very end, when Scrooge runs into his nephew Fred in the street, and Fred's on the horse and cart, the horse is Cyril Proudbottom, Mr. Toad's horse.
Okay, I knew I recognized the horse. I could not remember from where.
Yep, Cyril Proudbottom. And I think his name's Otto, the dog from Robin Hood with the cast and the crutches. I believe he's in there somewhere. I didn't see his name, but I was pretty sure I saw him when I was watching it.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and watch to check.
And that is all of our characters, all of our casts, all of our fun facts. Not much, because it's, 26 minutes short. But we can talk pretty quickly about Christmas Carol. It's pretty short, so it'll be easy enough. So we mentioned our memories just a minute ago, but we watched this a good bit. I remember it most from that House of Mouse VHS.
I remember it most from that, but I want to say I saw it somewhere beforehand.
We probably saw it somewhere else.
This was my very first exposure to the Christmas Carol story, was this version. So
yeah, that makes sense. It's
anytime I see anything else, in my mind is equating to them to, all right, what character are they in the Mickey one?
That's funny. That makes a lot of sense. I feel like this was probably all of our first exposure to the Christmas Carol story. Because we watched this on repeat as kids at Christmas time.
Oh, yeah.
When I think of this, I can't separate it from the rest of the Christmas shorts in that, which is like Pluto's Christmas Tree and the Nutcracker, but with the Mickey characters.
Yeah.
And Mickey decorating his house. Donald ice skating while the triplets are
oh my gosh, I
snowman.
forgot about that one. That's an old one. I like that.
All of the classic Mickey Christmas shorts are all combined in my brain, including this one. So I mean that's kind of it for memories. This is a good one. But what is how do you feel about this movie before we talk about it?
I feel like I would like this movie less. One, if I hadn't grown up with it, and two, if it was longer, because it kind of skims over a lot and just rushes into things and holds a little too long on certain scenes. But overall, it's a 30-minute short. I felt it. This is the first time ever I actually felt it was dragging. I'm like, oh wow, we're still going, but still, it's cute. It's fun. I don't think I like it as much as I did when I was a kid, but it's inoffensive and I like it. It's cute.
Definitely. I think it's probably still one of, if not my favorite versions of A Christmas Carol.
It's the most digestible, and it gets to the point.
And it's with familiar characters, and it's harmless. Yeah, it skims over a lot of parts of the story, but you get the main story.
Yeah, a lot of them aren't the most important.
Yeah, this will always have a special place in my heart. That's for sure. It's a really good one. So obviously it follows the storyline of A Christmas Carol, which I don't know of any Americans that don't know the story of A Christmas Carol by heart.
At this point, between this, The Muppet Christmas Carol, there's a new one on Netflix now. You've heard of The Christmas Carol.
Yeah, so I mean, it's the basic Christmas Carol story. You start off with Ebenezer Scrooge walking up to his counting house, and this one always has the detail where the sign that says Scrooge and Marley, he X'd out Marley on it, and Snow, because his name's at the top, Snow keeps covering Scrooge, so he keeps hitting it with his cane and knocking the snow off, which is a fun detail. So Scrooge walks into his counting house, and he catches Bob Cratchit, Mickey Mouse, trying to start a fire, and he's being stingy, and he's like, hey, you used a piece of coal last week, and Mickey's like, yeah, I know, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to melt the ink. And Scrooge is like, whatever, do your work.
It's like, I'm like, wow, I remember you're Scrooge, you're supposed to be a jerk, but like, it's like, dude's trying to do his job, man, the thing you're paying him for, and he can't? You'd be furious otherwise. Let the man thaw the ink.
You'd think it'd be acceptable to thaw ink, but
exactly.
And nephew Fred, wonderful Donald Duck, enters after Scrooge sits down and wishes Scrooge a Merry Christmas, gives him a wreath, invites him to dinner the next day, because it's Christmas Eve, by the way. That's kind of important, I guess. And Scrooge...
Yeah, a little bit of an important detail.
Slightly important. Scrooge, of course, denies this, throws the wreath out the door, kicks Fred out, and says, bah, humbug. And then Fred sneaks the wreath back in, but...
I love that part, because it's like he like peeks his head and is like, Merry Christmas, and like almost like throws it just to close it back. Like he's not taking no for an answer. It was kind of funny.
It's so good. And when Cratchit agrees with him, he's like, yeah, Merry Christmas, and Scrooge goes, what'd you say? And Bob's like,
Mm-hmm.
It's really good. It's kind of cool to see Mickey not as the main character. Like, it's nice to see him as just one of the minor characters. That never really happens.
It's fascinating. He's definitely one of the more major characters out of all of them, but it is fascinating to see him not like he is still second fiddle, which does happen, but like not a lot.
It's really Scrooge McDuck's Christmas Carol, more than Mickey's Christmas Carol. But
not quite as easy.
I read that in some of the reviews that was an issue for some critics, was that it wasn't. It was called Mickey's Christmas Carol, and it wasn't about Mickey. And I was like, that's just kind of dumb to me. Like, he's in it. He's Bob Cratchit, the second most important character. Like, well, I guess if you count the ghosts. It doesn't matter. He's in it. He's one of the major-ish characters. But all that aside, Bob anxiously asks Scrooge for some of the day off.
Literally asks for only half the day off. And the way it sounds, it sounds like it's gonna be like the second half. Like he still has to come in the morning and just gets off early. That the way he was phrasing that, and I'm like, bro. And he's like, yeah, but I'm cutting you half a day's wages.
Well, I mean, when you don't work half a day, you only get half a day's pay.
I mean, yeah,
makes sense.
2 shillings and a halfpenny a day.
I don't know what that equates to, but...
Also, don't know. I just found that. And a halfpenny. Oh, yeah, I gave you that raise 3 years ago.
When I started doing your laundry. Either Bob doesn't know how to stand up for himself and doesn't have a spine, or he just really cares about Scrooge.
I think it's just... The only thing I can imagine is that it's impossible to get a job there. And so he's like, I'm holding on to this for dear life.
That makes sense. I follow that logic. Scrooge begrudgingly agrees to give him half a day off, as we said, but for only half a day's pay, naturally. And then he leaves, and he heads back to his house, and as he walks up the steps, course, the door knocker turns into Jacob Marley's face, which is goofy.
I do love a little bit beforehand, but like that he when he was talking about Marley was like, yeah, the man, he such a greedy man. He left me. What was it? He left me just enough money for his tombstone, and I had him buried at sea.
Oh, Scrooge.
It was kind of funny to me.
It's funny, and it's a perfect picture of who Scrooge is at the beginning of the movie, so it makes
exactly.
sense.
It gives it a funny but also like accurate way to figure that out.
It works. So the door hanger turns into Marley's face, which is goofy, which adds some of that Mickey Mouse charm to it.
He is the one part that I cannot. It physically removes me from the movie because it being goofy is like, all right, interesting choice as is, making the klutz the ghost, but like, okay, that's whatever. It's the fact that he does not sound like Goofy in any regard to me. He does not sound any bit like Goofy. So I hear him and immediately I'm taken out. Like, what is with the voice? What is that?
Yeah, I get that. But I mean, when Pinto Colvig had only died a couple years prior,
I get it.
It's hard to replace a classic. So, but I agree. I think this is one of the least good parts of a movie.
Yeah.
It does work having the klutz as Marley because of all the chains. So there's a lot of tripping. And then after he talks to Scrooge and he trips down the stairs, like, it works. And you hear the Goofy scream. Like, he plays the role well. It's just I don't know if I was to make the decisions, like if this didn't exist and I was able to choose who was who, I don't know if I would have put Goofy in that role.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it works. I think he does it well. And then, of course, one by one, the ghosts come and visit Scrooge and show him things and help him change. And Jiminy Cricket's the ghost of Christmas Past.
I legitimately forgot it was Jiminy Cricket
I did
until it
too.
started doing the camera jump.
The hopping.
Like it does in Pinocchio, which honestly, I'm like, that's kind of really fun.
It is fun, although after having done the Pinocchio episode, it's harder for me to like Jiminy Cricket. So when I was watching this, I was thinking of the negative comments you made about Jiminy in the Pinocchio episode, Adam, and I was like, dang, it's harder for me to like him. He's getting on my nerves now.
I liked him better in this than Pinocchio, because in this he is supposed to be like, hey, you're messing up. See, this is up to you to fix. So you got to do this. Meanwhile, in Pinocchio, he's supposed to be a protector. So him being a warning outside instead of a guardian, I think works way better for his character and actually makes his mannerisms and stuff work better.
Yeah, and the guy that voiced Jiminy for this, Eddie Carroll, captures a lot of the same.
Eddie Christmas Carol.
I hate you, Adam.
Oh, that's it.
I was waiting for that. Whatever. He captures a lot of the same vocal inflections and tones as Cliff Edwards, and it. I honestly, when I was first watching it, I wasn't sure if Cliff Edwards had died at this point or not. Like, I was like, maybe he's really old and was able to still voice it. So Jiminy is the voice of the ghost of Christmas Past, and takes him to Fezziwig's and shows him what a jerk he was and how he chose money over Isabel.
Well, first he shows him like the good times, like, hey, remember when this meant something to you? And then hard cuts to, and then the person that you loved most, that you held dearest, you pushed her away for money, which is beautifully done. Like, I really love that. And it kind of almost speed runs it, where it's like it does it very quickly, but also it's just so weird seeing Daisy hitting on a young Scrooge. I'm like, this feels wrong to Disney canon.
It's very off-putting. It's very off-putting. It's like, I know that that's not Daisy, it's Isabel, but it's Daisy, and that's not Donald so she's flirting with.
I have to, in my mind, put this as they are actors in a play. The Disney characters are actors. Otherwise, it starts bothering me that there's a young Scrooge and Huey, Dewey, and Louie exist, and I'm like, that's, you know what? We're moving on. It don't matter.
That's exactly what was going through my mind. It's like, this is a play being put on by the Disney characters.
Mm-hmm.
and it makes me feel better.
Yes. Scrooge killing the role. Scrooge killing the role.
Yes, he's doing wonderful. And then Jiminy ends up. Well, Scrooge just ends up waking up in his bed. I think.
Yes.
I didn't take plot point notes because I was like, it's 26 minutes.
Yeah. Scrooge wakes up in his bed
somehow
with the canopy around him.
That's it, and he sees light and he hears something, and then all of a sudden, Willie the Giant, fee-fi-fo-fum, and he's the ghost of Christmas Present, and
That's a fun one.
He is the best portrayal of this character. As far as Disney characters go, I think he did the best. I think
agree.
he could have. He was the best. Like
I think there may have been a couple you could have pulled from that would have given a similar vibe. Like, honestly, somebody like Little John from Robin Hood, I think, would have done really good. But
yeah,
I
but
think
his line deliveries, his stumbling, because he does that a lot in Fun and Fancy Free, which we haven't covered that movie on the normal podcast yet. But the Smustachios, Pisnicia, and yogurt. He does that in Fun and Fancy Free as well, so it works.
It worked a lot. It worked well.
He's visibly funny too, just the way that he does things. When he pulled the cap off of the street lamp and used it as a flashlight and clicked it on and off.
It's such good visual humor that he does when he takes the roof off and
lifts the roof and you hear the scream. And he's like, oh, not that one.
But also when he's going out of Scrooge's house, his foot gets stuck on the wall for a second before he lifts it over. It's fun.
It's just so good. I think it was the right decision to make him the Ghost of Christmas Present. And he takes Scrooge to see Bob Cratchit's house. And, Scrooge makes a joke. What is he cooking? A canary? But honestly, it is kind of canary-sized, the turkey. So,
yeah.
I mean, it kind of works. So he sees just how poor Bob is and begins to hit him like, hey, maybe he should get paid more.
Maybe you working him for the bare minimum is affecting him negatively. Capitalism, everyone.
Exactly. And then he turns around and the Ghost of Christmas Present is gone. And smoke comes around and all of a sudden...
I will say, that scene specifically where he's like, oh crap, this. I am starting to see the action, and then it's like, tell me what I can do, and there's nobody to tell him, as it's just the giant footprints around him, and then the smoke rolls in. That's a really good scene.
I remember being genuinely afraid whenever the Ghost of Christmas Future came in as a kid. Like, I remember it being genuinely scary to me. Which, of course, Pete, there's no one better than Pete to be the Ghost of Christmas Future. I
disagree.
Really?
I feel like the ghost, and this is maybe my interpretation that's wrong. I feel like the Ghost of Christmas Future is not supposed to be threatening. He is not supposed to be, like, almost even warning. He is just kind of like, this is what will be. I am neutral in this. I have no stake in this. This is what will happen if you continue down the path. I think Pete gets too much joy out of it. And so that's to me, I'm like, I feel like he's supposed to be more neutral and more passive to it. He's still going to show him the things, but like, it's just, Pete's a little too evil for it, in my opinion.
I can see where you're coming from. I have always seen the Ghost of Christmas Future as
kind of
darker.
A devil allegory.
Yeah. Like Grim Reaper style.
There, and maybe that's because in popular media nowadays, I've seen a lot of stuff where the Grim Reaper isn't a villain or a negative force. He's there doing his job, helping progress the natural order of life.
Yeah, and that makes sense.
So that may just be my own perception, but regardless, the laugh he gives as he
it's yours, Ebenezer.
Yeah. Also, you can tell it's not Jim Cummings.
Well, yeah, but it's also definitely not the original voice of Pete either.
Yeah, but I do find it like it's fun. I do think it works with Pete, with all the smoke around, making everything look ominous because of his cigar. And I'm like, yeah. Okay, that part works. That part works really well.
It does. And I think, As far as I can think of, this is the only iteration of the Christmas Carol where the Ghost of Christmas Future says anything.
And that may be another one of my problems. Is like I feel like you don't need to talk. I've seen one that gestures just towards the name on the thing or reveals
That's what
it.
most of them are is gestures and just pointing and stuff. And I did kind of have a problem with that. It's in Pete's nature to be demeaning. So when they chose to have Pete there, it makes sense that he would say something.
I think it makes sense with Pete acting this. I just don't think it makes the most sense with Pete for the role. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I think I agree. I guess I've gotten so used to seeing Pete in the role that I was just kind of off the limb, like, he's a perfect character, but you sharing your opinion, it makes a lot of sense. So, I see that. And then, of course, Scrooge wakes up in his bed, and he realizes that it's Christmas Day, and that it's not too late to change, and that he was wrong, and he was being a bah humbug Scrooge, and he goes out and gets...
This part never fails to put a smile on my face because I've seen different ones where it's like, yes, I've seen the error of my ways, I'm going to help people now. None match his energy where he is legitimately giddy. He is so excited. He's like, I have a chance, I can change, I can still do this. And it's just,
he runs out the door with the coat rack on his back.
I love that he runs out, runs back in his pajamas, like, I can't go out like this. Grabs the cane, let's go!
That's much better.
It's so stupid, I love it.
Scrooge McDuck was obviously a perfect Ebenezer Scrooge. I mean...
He was perfect for it.
Aside from the names, it's perfect.
He's a grumpy Gus that loves money. It's too perfect.
It is too perfect. But he runs out and he gives tons of money to Ratty and Mole that we're collecting for the poor. He goes and gets a bunch of toys and a turkey for the Cratchits and goes over there and tricks them into thinking that he's angry.
And then starts laughing. Him knocking on the door and being like, acting mad, but breaking and having to try to stay angry looking outside the door before they open it is the cutest thing.
Oh, it's precious. It's
I
precious.
love
and
it.
he can't stay mad. By the time he finishes his sentence, he's already on the floor laughing.
Yeah. He is so genuinely excited to be able to make a change, to be able to be a better person.
It is such a good iteration of Scrooge.
It's a great one.
That's where it ends. Although, I will say I have an issue.
Okay.
Even though I've never liked the line that Tiny Tim says, God bless us everyone, because it's so cheesy and corny the way every version of Tiny Tim that says it. It wasn't Tiny Tim that said it. It was Scrooge. And it just feels wrong. Yes, Scrooge said it. And it feels wrong.
Wait,
It's
no.
supposed to be a...
Are we talking about in the Mickey's Christmas Carol?
Yes.
No, it was Tiny Tim.
I'm 90% sure it was Scrooge McDuck.
I will pull this up on my phone.
Do it. Because
I remember it being the squeaky voice of the child actor that I did not care about and thought the delivery was awful.
Well, that's how it usually is, but I'm pretty certain it was Scrooge this time because I thought it very odd.
So welcome back. I checked it and I'm right. It was Tiny Tim.
Now I'm sad. I hate being wrong. I don't know why I thought that. I could have sworn it was Scrooge.
I wish it was Scrooge because the delivery would have been better.
Whatever. Anyways, that is the end of our cute little short Mickey's Christmas Carol. It is fun. It is a classic. It is a well-executed Mickey version, and I am a big fan. Adam, give me a quick last final opinion, and we'll go ahead and do a ranking.
Okay,
Not
I
that it
didn't know
really
we were
matters,
doing a
but may as
ranking,
well.
but-
Yeah, we'll do a ranking. Go ahead and give me thoughts and ranking.
Like I said off the top, it's great. It's fun. It's so cute. Any problems you can have with the movie kind of don't even need to hold up because it's 30 minutes. Who cares? It's a fun little short. a lot of it's like, oh, it's the story you already know, but it's also just it's good. I think there were a couple missteps here and there that I think could have done better, mainly like Pete, but overall it gives you the warm fuzzies and it's good. I'm giving it a 7 out of 10.
7, nice. I agree with all of that. There are a few minor details that bother me, but there are minor details about every version of A Christmas Carol that bother me.
Yeah, that makes.
I have yet to see a version that I think is just perfect.
Mm-hmm.
This is by far my favorite of anything that I've seen Christmas Carol wise. I based a lot on nostalgia, and I'm just being open and honest about that. I would have to give this a 9 because I just think it is so good, and it just makes me think of Christmas. So there you go. Mickey's Christmas Carol got a 7 and a 9. So it's a pretty fun, short, inoffensive beginnings to Holidays of Chaos. This fun little mini series. If this is your first time to ever listen to us, we are typically going through all of the Walt Disney animation feature films in order of release date. But we will take breaks to do some fun holiday-themed episodes whenever the time is correct, of course. So stay tuned for our normal episodes. If you listen to our previous episode, The Three Caballeros, we had mentioned we were taking a hiatus for a little bit because of the holiday season. And the situation with the next movie is a little complicated. But hopefully that episode will be coming to y'all before too terribly long. So stay tuned, stay posted. Hope everybody has a wonderful and joyous holiday season and a wonderful Christmas. We are excited to spend Christmas together. I hope y'all will get to be with loved ones on Christmas. And thanks for joining us for our very first episode of Distracted Holidays of Chaos. Thanks, Adam, for being our special guest for this first episode. Hopefully we will have many, many more of these fun, festive themes. So stay tuned. We will catch you guys later. Try not to get too distracted. We probably will. And we'll catch you guys next time.
Merry Christmas and see you fa la 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 later.
That was painful.
It was so good!
The Distracted podcast is inspired by Disorder Every Disney Film, which is a part of the Real Fans for Real Movies network. However, we are not affiliated with this network. We simply liked the idea. Distracted Quartet of Chaos is not affiliated with the Walt Disney Company, and our opinions should not be associated as such.